Hello. Today I'm going to be answering another one of my simple questions. Now, simple questions is where I answer simple questions in not much time. Basically, you get a fair and square answer. Now, today's simple question is, what are the advantages and disadvantages of using BMI? Now, BMI, of course, as I said before, is basically how you measure your body percentage of fat. Now, it's very, very simple, but sometimes it's not complete 100% accurate. Now, BMI is basically how you work out the percentage of your body fat. Now, BMI takes in consideration of your skin fat and brown fat, which is the fat which lurks inside your body and usually sticks around your vital organs, but can also cause heart problems if you have too much of that. So BMI is basically, all that it is your weight in kilograms divided by your height squared in meters squared. And you'll get a 1 or 2 digit number, usually a 2-digit number. That's all that it is. There are no units in BMI. Now the number is basically a percentage of your fat around your body. Now a healthy BMI is somewhere in the region of about 15 to 20. Lower than 15 is underweight, and higher than that is overweight. Now, obesity is around about 30 BMI, which is too much. BMI is very useful, but it's not always useful. Let me give you one example. I can say this, that most BMI, if a child is ill or sick, some doctors might even use BMI on children. Now, they used to do this a long time ago, but they are now considering doing it some other way. Now, the problem is that children are forever growing. They're forever losing weight and they're forever gaining weight. In some parts of their life, when teenagers like me, we'll be using more weight, more energy, so we need more food, and we might tend to be a little bit more underweight. That's because we're using more energy, because of hormones and all that. So the BMI doctor might say that I'm underweight, but in fact it's okay, because children are forever growing. Because 2 weeks later I might be a healthy weight. I suddenly might have gone from underweight to overweight. And then some children might even be in the obese category. But that's because children are forever losing weight and gaining weight, and they're never really quite settled. Now this is bad. This is a disadvantage of BMI. It's because they're not brilliant for children. It's not really that accurate for children. And so children really don't have to worry about their weight at all, because really they'll be gaining it and lowering it and all that. Now, an advantage of BMI is basically for adults. It's brilliant for adults. Adults need a good need BMI, because that's when they're settled. Their body is settled, and it's not really like a child's body anymore. Of course it isn't. It's fully grown. And this is very good for working out adults' BMI, because they're settled, they're not growing anymore, and they might be gaining too much weight because they don't need much energy as they do anymore. That's an advantage of BMI. It's good for usually middle-aged people who have an inactive job, let's say, like an office worker. Office worker, it's interesting for them to find out their BMI so they can lose weight, or they need to gain more weight. Office workers don't tend to they don't do much exercise because they're always sitting around all day. So it's useful for them to work out their BMI. Now, that's a good thing for an inactive job, is a good BMI. But another disadvantage is it could be bad for someone who has an active job. For example, if you're a construction worker, you're going to be working hard all day and working on a house or whatever you're going to be working on. Now this is considerably bad, because they could be gaining weight or losing weight at all, depending on what types of jobs they might have to be doing. If they don't have any work for a couple of weeks, they might gain a small amount of weight. But if they're working all the time, which is probably the majority, they'd be losing a lot of weight. So that may change and may fracture a tiny bit. That might be a tiny disadvantage. But it's generally good for adults of middle age. Now, it's also not very good for old people or elderly people. For example, their weight might be quite low because they might be losing energy to keep them going, because their body needs more energy, because their organs are older than everybody else's. But again, just like a child, they might be gaining weight or losing weight depending on how they are, because again, their bodies are not completely settled. So that's a disadvantage, that it's not brilliant for elderly people. Best thing for elderly people is just having their sole weight, and that's it. That's all that's very good for them, it's just their weight, not their height, not BMI. That can help them lose weight. Some elderly people do have to lose weight. And that's another disadvantage, that it's not completely brilliant for BMI, for elderly people. So BMI is generally okay from the middle-aged people to older people, and for children and elderly people, it's not so good. So that was my video clip on the disadvantages and advantages of the BMI.